Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Saturday. I hope the weekend is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It all feels a little bit calm before the storm, doesn't it, in terms of what's to come tomorrow, both at the Etihad, of course, and at the Emirates, where I shall be. Really don't know how I'm feeling about that at the moment. I'm trying to kind of put it out of my mind. I think like when I talk about calm before the storm, I think that's kind of that's how I'm approaching today. I think I'm just going to put everything that is going to happen tomorrow out of my mind, try and relax a little bit, and then, yeah, get in game mode tomorrow. But there is plenty to talk about today ahead of that game. Look at what Mikel Arteta was saying in his press conference yesterday. Some interesting stuff in terms of how he is feeling. We'll talk about Aaron Ramsdale as well, who has been in the news in the last 24 hours over a possible transfer to Newcastle. Got questions and comments from you guys as well. We'll talk about some Arsenal exits that have been announced as well. So let's start with Aaron Ramsdale, shall we? Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the tweet that he put out yesterday. 3 words, just news to me with a laughing emoji. Now, that is in response to stories that started doing the rounds yesterday that he has agreed a deal with Newcastle. It is all done. I think there was talk of £15 million with 3 million in add-ons, so 18 million in total, which would be quite a big financial hit for Arsenal, given I think I can't even remember how much they spent for Aaron now. It's close to 30, I think, wasn't it? So that would be quite a big financial hit. So that started doing the rounds yesterday. There was other reports that it had been done. Look, I've heard whispers as well for a while now, that the expectation is that he's going to go to Newcastle. I certainly hadn't heard that it was all done and dusted, but kind of very similar to how it felt and what we were hearing in the build-up to last summer with Kieran Tierney going to Newcastle. That's what I've been hearing at the moment about Aaron Ramsdale as well. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if it does actually happen in the summer. But Aaron Ramsdale, very, very quick to point out right now that the rumours doing the round yesterday were false and nothing has been agreed. And that certainly, I imagine, is the case. Now, we'll wait and see what happens, Aaron, in the summer. The expectation, of course, is that he is going to go. He's going to want to play football. He's not going to want to have another season like he's having right now, where he barely gets any games. He's too good a goalkeeper to do that. He's got his England ambitions. He's still probably going to go. Well, he will go to the Euros in the summer, no doubt about that. He's not going to be number one. Had he been playing regularly this season, he might well have pushed Jordan Pickford to be number one at the Euros. But obviously he hasn't. He's behind David Raya, and David Raya is going to make that move permanent to Arsenal in the summer, and he is Arsenal's number one goalkeeper. So it's just, it's a given, I think, that one way or the other Ramsdale goes this summer. Arsenal would want it to be a sale, I'm absolutely sure. The only issue is, and I saw people reacting to the 18 million figure that was doing around yesterday in sort of general astonishment. And I can understand that because, as I said at the start, it is a big financial hit for Arsenal given what they paid for him. But also, there isn't going to be that big a market for Aaron Ramsdale this summer because clubs know that Arsenal are going to need to try and sell him. And it's simple, isn't it? We've seen it before with other players. And when you're in that position, when clubs know you're looking to sell, they're not going to come in and offer top dollar. It's the same if you're buying a house and the guy needs a quick sale to move out. You're not going to offer him what he's asking, are you? You're going to offer below and say, yeah, take it or leave it, mate. And so I imagine that's going to be how clubs are going to approach discussions with Arsenal when it comes to Aaron Ramsdale this summer. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I've said it before. It wouldn't surprise me in the end. If you get towards the end of the window and no one sort of hit a figure that Arsenal won and he ends up going on loan, I don't know. The likelihood is that that they are going to sell, and we'll have to wait and see what happens with him. But yeah, news to me. But look, I hope Aaron Ramsdale gets a really wonderful send-off. In fact, I'm sure he will get a really wonderful send-off on Sunday, whatever happens in the game against Everton, because I think most people at the Emirates will know that's probably going to be the last time they see Aaron Ramsdale in an Arsenal shirt, and he'll definitely get the send-off that he deserves. But yeah, from the horse's mouth there, news to me, nothing agreed yet when it comes to Aaron Ramsdale's future. 2 players who are leaving Arsenal, and that has been announced. Reuell Walters, he's going. He announced it on social media yesterday with a little post thanking everyone for the work they've done with him while he's been at the club, but it's time for him to move on. That's an exit that we've been expecting, just waiting for confirmation. Basically, Arsenal did try and get him to stay. They offered him a contract, but he didn't really have any interest in signing that contract. No surprise. He hasn't played for the first team yet, been on the bench plenty of times, never got onto the first team. And when you look at players who are in his position, there's no future for him at Arsenal, is there? He's not going to get in front of Tomiyasu, Ben White, Yuri and Timber, Saliba, players who can play either right back or right-sided centre back. So if you're Reuell is in that situation, what are you going to do? Are you going to move on, or are you going to sign a new contract and stay at Arsenal and not really get the game time? You're gonna move on, and that's what he's going to do. Hopefully, he'll get a decent move. By all accounts, there's plenty of clubs that are interested in him, which is no surprise because he's a talented young defender. And on the other end of things, Mohamed Elneny, from a youngster to a very, very senior player. Mohamed Elneny also announcing that he is going to leave at the end of the season. He put out a video yesterday, very emotional video from Elneny. He's been at the club a long time, 8 years. I think he's Arsenal's longest serving player, actually, in the current squad. One of the very few remaining players who was there under Wenger and was signed under Wenger. And he is going to move on at the end of the season. Like I said, if you haven't seen the video yet, I did retweet it yesterday. Go and watch it. It's pretty emotional stuff from Elneny, who's loved it at Arsenal, and he's loved at Arsenal. And, yes, his game time has been very, very limited. And, I've seen people pretty disrespectfully just calling him a cheerleader and things like that this season. Like, he's still an international player. He's a decent player, but Arsenal have moved on from Mohamed Elneny, and but he's still hugely, hugely popular, and he absolutely loves Arsenal. And, he'll, like Aaron Ramsdale, he'll get a wonderful reception on Sunday when he leaves. And you can tell, I can guarantee he'll be emotional on the pitch from that. He's just a lovely guy, Mohamed Elneny. When you speak to him, just, it's cliche. I know you always hear people say, oh, one of the nicest guys you meet in football, but Mohamed Elneny is one of the nicest guys I've met in football. And hopefully he goes on and gets himself a decent move somewhere and can see out his career with another couple of years playing at a decent level. But he is going to move on. We've seen other Arsenal exits announced in recent days. Kido Taylor-Hart announced he was going. There's been a couple of other youngsters as well, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more to follow in the coming weeks. Right, moving on to what Mikel had to say at his press conference yesterday. Some interesting stuff from him on a few things, on how he's going to be feeling on the weekend, on how his nerves are going to be. He says it's one of the biggest weeks for many of us, and certainly now is the most important moment. I'm really excited and can't wait for Sunday to be in front of us. And obviously, I'm very optimistic as well with the possible outcome. So asked about if he senses real excitement around the squad. He says, I do, and around the building. We are in the last day of the season playing for the Premier League. The Premier League trophy hasn't been at Emirates Stadium, and that was built almost 20 years ago. So that's a long, long time. So yes, we have to be very optimistic. The trophy is going to be there, and it's possible. We have to do our duties, and then we have to wait and see what happens. He also spoke at length about West Ham, about David Moyes, and about how he does believe. And he says, what's the point? If I don't believe, what's the point? You've got to always believe. And that is the case. That's what Arsenal got to think. They've got to believe. They've got to go out there and do their job on Sunday. That's the most important thing. You've got to win, because if you don't win, then it doesn't matter what happens at the Etihad, does it? So you've got to go out there and do your job, get the win, and then you've just always got to believe, because you never know. Yes, it is unbelievably unlikely that West Ham are going to get anything at Manchester City. The likelihood is Man City will probably be up 3-0 up after half an hour. You never know. West Ham came to the Emirates in December. Arsenal had 30 shots and West Ham won 2-0. Football is a strange, strange thing. Anything can happen, especially when pressure is involved. And so you've just got to believe, and Arsenal will keep believing. Watch that Arteta press conference yesterday. He absolutely still believes, and I think that has to be the message that is sent to the squad. There was lots of other interesting stuff from Arteta actually in the press conference. He was asked in the embargo bit that went out last night at 10:30 about what he was doing for when he was watching the Spurs City game, and what his reaction was when Son went through and had that one-on-one that was missed. And he's just basically admitted, look, I had my head in my hands. He said, I was watching it with my kids. My kids had their heads in their hands. I had my head in my hands. He said he wouldn't have wanted it to fall to any other person in Son, but it's just what happens. I can imagine, we all did it. That sort of time just froze for a couple of seconds, didn't it, when Son went through on that one-on-one. It doesn't matter who you are, an Arsenal fan here, in Africa, in Australia, in Brazil. If you're a player sitting and watching at home, if you're Mikel Arteta sitting at home watching it with his family, the reaction everywhere would have been exactly the same. Just that time stand still. Is he going to score? No, he's missed. And then head in your hands. It's like that was the moment. It just makes me laugh that, it doesn't matter who you are. That was the exact sort of thought and reaction that we all had in that. He was also asked about his contract yesterday, Mikel, and it's something I spoke about earlier on in the week in terms of how there's no panic about things at Arsenal. The plan is just to get through to the end of the season, focus purely on the football, try and get this title won, and then they'll all sit down and get it done. I don't certainly get any impression that people are worried that Mikel Arteta is going to go at Arsenal and not sign this contract. You know, he's happy here, the club are happy here, the players are happy. So it just feels a given that that contract will be signed. He was asked about his plans to discuss the contract with the summer. He says that's something that after the season or whenever the right time is, we will sit down and talk on whether it's important to get it done early, which it absolutely is in my mind, because you just want that any sort of uncertainty to put out the window, especially when it comes to signing new players. He said what's important is to win now and keep believing that we continue to win. That's the important thing. He also spoke about transfers for the summer. And getting things done early. We said, look, that's the idea, that's the plan. But he then did point to the fact that there is the European Championships and the Copa America coming this summer, which might make things a little bit difficult when it comes to getting your transfer business done early. But that's what Mikel said about his contract. Elsewhere, David Raya got his award, got handed his Golden Glove award, which you can see there if you're watching on YouTube. I did laugh at the squad picture here with everyone standing in front of David Raya. There's no Bukayo Saka in that picture. This is when Arsenal were training at the Emirates earlier on in the week. We know Saka is potentially a bit of a injury doubt for that game on Sunday after he limped off against Manchester United. And it just made me laugh that I have no idea if this is the case or not, but it just, all I was thinking was, I wouldn't be surprised they said, look, Bukayo, you go and take the photo because we don't want you in this picture. Mikel doesn't want you in this picture. He doesn't want to give anything away in terms of potential team news. So either get behind the camera or you can take the picture yourself. And it just made me laugh. That's how it wouldn't surprise me if that's what Mikel Arteta did, because he's so determined to keep any sort of team news away from things that even in a picture like this, he's still got it in his mind of don't let Bukayo Saka get in front of the camera because I don't want anyone to see whether he's training or not. But congratulations, David Raya. Fantastic achievement, not just to you, but to the defenders as well. You know, Arsenal as a team, just unbelievable defensively this season. Unbelievable record. And yeah, congratulations to David Raya. Well, moving on to some questions before we wrap this up today. Major MVP 26 says, hi, Charles. With the rumours of Ramsdale's departure to Newcastle rising and given that Arsenal are interested in both Bruno G and Isak, do you think both parties would involve in a swap deal plus cash? I mean, look, it's an easy sort of idea to go to, isn't it? Because it just makes sense that you want this player, we've got this player, we want your player. Why don't we have a little swap deal going on the cards? But they're never as easy as they sound, and that's why they're so rare that they happen. Obviously, there are examples of it happening. You know, Alexis Sanchez, Henrik Mkhitaryan. There are other examples of it as well, but they are very rare because they are very different, difficult deals to do because of the complexities of it all. So, yes, it makes sense if Arsenal are going to try and sign Bruno Guimaraes that you think, you know, you want Ramsdale, let's, you know, we'll give you Ramsdale and 40 million for Bruno Guimaraes. You know, whether Newcastle accept that, I don't know. You know, there's talk that Newcastle fancy Emil Smith-Rowe as well. Could you get that? Could you get him involved in any possible deal? So yes, it sounds like, you know, it's quite a simple thing to do, but it never quite works out like that. So I'd be surprised, even if Arsenal do end up signing Bruno and Newcastle do end up signing Aaron Ramsdale, I still would think it's far more likely that they will be separate deals rather than actually included in a straight swap. John says, hey, Charles, I'm with you. No big changes for the start of the next season, as we've been amazing this year and we have a winning formula in the usual 14 to 15 players. What we need to do is keep new signings back until they have learned how MA wants them to play in this team, got things to click in their unit and between them and the units around them. It's a big learning curve, as we know. A good preseason will help, but with the internationals going on at the time, there will be players missing, meaning no getting to play as a unit with them or learn how to play in a unit around them. Last thing we need is a new starting lineup at the start of the season, regardless who we bring in. I think it's a really good point. I haven't even factored in when I was talking about this and how I really don't want to see wholesale changes and everyone getting used to each other at the start of the season and the football being a bit, you know, kind of what we saw at the start of this season, where you could tell everyone was adjusting to Declan Rice being in the team, Kai Havertz being in the team, and the sort of system shifting around a little bit. And you could tell in that first half of the season, although the results were still pretty decent on the whole, that players were getting used to each other and it wasn't quite as fluid as what we've seen in the second half of the season. And so, yeah, that's why I was saying it. But I hadn't even really factored in the internationals. I think it's a really good point because pre-season is going to be very disjointed this season because players are going to be arriving back later than others and you're going to be dripping them in. And, you know, whenever you sign for Arsenal, it's a huge learning curve. Declan Rice admitted it, didn't he? He said when he first came in, for the first few weeks, he just didn't know what was going on and what was being asked of him because it's so different to what he was used to at West Ham. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good point. And yeah, 100% has to be taken into account. Here's one from the Padawan guitarist. He says, "Hi, Charles. Thank you for your content as always. I use your shows as my morning brief on the way to work here in the US. No problem." He said, "I wanted to gauge your thoughts on how Thiago would fit into this Arsenal squad as he is leaving Liverpool this summer as a free agent. Could Arteta replicate another Jorginho masterclass?" No, simple answer on that. Look, Thiago's a fantastic player, had an amazing career, but I think his injury record speaks for itself at Liverpool. Wouldn't go near him with a barge pole. I have to say, the last thing you want is bringing in a player who would be on pretty big wages, who is just going to be pretty much unavailable. Arsenal have had that with midfielders in the last couple of seasons anyway, and you don't want to be adding another one into the mix. So no, not for me on that one. All right, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching or for listening. Everyone, appreciate your time. As always, do have a very good Saturday. Try and forget about what's to come tomorrow if you can. Enjoy yourselves. I'll be back in the morning to do a preview show. You want to get included in that? Let me know in the comments below. Give me a starting 11, who you think should play, who shouldn't play. Any thoughts about the potential starting lineup for Arsenal, and I'll get them included in tomorrow's show. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.